I really did have this attitude that I'm so good at what I do, the rest of it will just work itself out.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't. You know, when you came in and started putting processes, like the one thing you hammered in our meetings was, but what is the process for this? What are we meeting on? Because you knew we wanted to scale. And you could see we could not scale doing what we were doing, but you could also see that I had to see that in order to get on board.
Right.
And I think the way you worked with me was very, in a way, and I don't know how you work with other clients, but and I'm sure you do the same thing, but you listen and you understand, but so professionally said, okay, I understand that because I too am an entrepreneur, or I too have dealt with that. Let's just start here.
Before we started working together, was there something that made you think that there was a change that you needed to make? Like, were you reaching a breaking point, or were you just like, there's too much going on? Like, what was that thing that made you think something's got to change? This isn't working well.
Well, for me, I had been doing it all on my own since my 20s because I had my own business. I'd been an entrepreneur. You learn that you do have to wear all the hats, so I was in that lane that I had to wear all the hats. And then on top of it, I knew what I wanted, and therefore I didn't trust to pass things off. And what happens in that situation, as you know, when you came in and started working with me, is overstressed. Stuff wasn't getting done on time. I was frustrated because I was like, I know what you're telling me. Like you would say, Jennie, you need to do A, B, and C. And I was like, I understand that, but you don't understand is this. Obviously, something had to change. I couldn't scale. And so then you came in and very kindly, but very consistently telling me, let's hop on a call. I do want to understand. Help me to understand what it is. And you're like, who on the team can handle this? Who can we pass this off? This is administrative. This is this. This is that. There are other people who can learn this. I would say that you did understand where I was sitting.
For sure.
And you had overcome that. And you knew a system. And you knew I could pass stuff off. And you just had to gently guide me a step at a time. And you were so patient with that. And working with you, you helped hire my very first assistant that I had ever had, which was Cammie. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were on a call and you were like, I talked to Cammie. She doesn't know what to do because you're not giving her anything. And I was like, well, I don't have time to give her anything. I feel like this is just another job for me to have to train now my assistant, And what you told me, and this will always stick with me, you're like, you do not have to train her. Just, I want her to shadow you. That's it. When you're on calls, I want her on the call. When you're sending an email, blind CC her on the email so she can understand what your job looks like, what your day looks like. And then she can say, I can grab that. I can do that. Like she was so good at just the organizing, the keeping my calendar. She would just come in and put new Post-its on I didn't even have to ask her. She'd come in and just put Post-its for the day. Today, these are the 3 things that you said in this meeting that you were going to get done. That was the first step, helping me just bring on an assistant. That was it.
I think entrepreneurs are special because we get up in the morning and we go out into the unknown and we have no path, no playbook. Nobody's telling us what to do. We just got to build stuff and make it up as we go. And that's a quality that can help us, but it can also work against us. We don't want to let go sometimes. So we got to recognize when it's working for and against. But what I've learned over the years, and Cammie was a good example of this. This will resonate with you, I think. There are people that play at the things that we work at. So you and I, we may play at creating and visionary stuff and coming up with some bigger picture strategies, but you'll never see me or you playing in a spreadsheet for fun. Cammie, Kendall, others, they do. They're like, oh, hang on, let me just whip up a spreadsheet.
Let me just whip that up. Sure. And that frees up space in your mind and energy to do the things that you're good at. So what I learned is the burnout at the end of the day started being less and less. And then you're like, okay, now let's talk about the clients. And you started helping me understand when we were getting on our weekly meetings and we were going through hours charged. And you know me, I hated meetings. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like meetings that were going through the spreadsheet. What you brought to that was how many things that you were seeing that I simply just did not see. I was just blind to it. You were like, okay, well, what about these hours? I see up here, this was charged for this, but then this wasn't charged. Was that part of this or is this something extra? Are we leaving money on the table? Okay. And I would say 9 times out of 10, absolutely, we were leaving money on the table. And you were like, in those circumstances, this is what I would do. I mean, it was invaluable. It really was because you had done it and you had seen it and you understood the foundation of building a business to scale and to do it in a system that was trackable, that made sense, because I hated that stuff, I just ignored it. But ignoring it is what keeps you stuck, and not understanding it is what kept me stuck. And now, even in my strategy and everything, my brain just goes there. You built for my brain to go there, and in not an exhausting way, in a very strategic way.
Right? If you can get leverage to go there once or twice, then you don't have to live there, and other people can.
Right.
And I like what you just said, the avoidance systems that our brains will build sometimes are complex. I've got millions and millions into avoidance. I've got my ass kicked so hard. You know about some of them. It's just because I didn't want to face something somewhere. A lot of times we turn away from that discomfort, but discomfort is usually just like physical fitness or something. It's the discomfort is where we actually grow and we can excel.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So describe the day-to-day maybe on before that, when you were reaching that point, and I know it was around the clock for you because I remember calls, emails, texts coming in at 11:30 at night and then at 6 a.m. What was that like before we started going into things?
I would say when you and I really jumped in and you were just and I really appreciate this because you were kind, but you pushed. And I'll just use the example where I was. So I had signed a local car wash company, brick and mortar, and you know who the client was. And they were my first kind of big brick and mortar account. Not just online. I was doing their in-store, and they had multiple locations. We were doing a grand opening for a new location in a way that they had never done. We were giving away this big charger, and I had gotten in the habit of just constantly, like you said, 11 o'clock at night, working on ideation. It was around the clock. The owner, you remember this, had my cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
And he said to me, I'm going to city meetings with him. Here I'm a marketer, and I'm going to city council meetings. And it wasn't his fault. It was my fault because I didn't set clear boundaries. What happened is they were wanting more and more and more and more for the same amount of hours. And you kept saying, if you're going to be doing all these things, first of all, you should never be giving your direct cell phone number to a client. That's where the assistant came in. They shouldn't have 24/7, 11 o'clock at night, you're on the phone with the owner of this company brain dumping.
For sure.
And this was me. I was getting frustrated with the client in this situation, he should just know. And you were just well, this is not a client issue. This is a Jennie issue. Let's work through it. I'm sure you remember this, but one night, without going into the drama of all of it, because nobody cares, I got pissed and I fired the client in kind of a bitchy email at 11 o'clock at night. And I CC'd everybody on. I was just pissed about something. I'm you saw the email in the morning. And you immediately reached out to me and you went into instant damage control. And you got a hold of him, you got me on the phone, you were how could we have handled this better? Let's pass this to me, and I'm going to walk you through this. And what I learned, because I don't know if you remember this, after that, you and I got on a call and we went through kind of what led up to this. And they were a big client, we were getting paid a lot, but it was such a massive learning experience because I realized at that time, I couldn't do this on my own, for sure. We could have avoided this. And you were never we could have avoided this if you would have just listened to me. You understood the dynamics of where I was and what I was doing and walked me through that in a way that was very structural, very helpful.
There's so many people that have had different name, different industry, different job, but the exact same circumstance because we reached that point as an entrepreneur. I'm sure that anybody that may see this, they're going to be oh, I did that. Because we reach a point where our capacity is no more. And as an entrepreneur, nobody tells us that our skill set has to change. And I often use the example of somebody baking cookies. If you bake a really good cookie and that's what you decide to go into business to do, it's because your passion is in the kitchen with an apron and flour and sugar and all these things. But soon enough, as you grow, you hit this point where no longer are the challenges that you have to deal with mostly kitchen-based. Now they start to become spreadsheet-based. And you're this isn't what I want. And then so all of a sudden these pressures, and it's then somebody does these things and they just keep piling up and you can't tolerate that anymore. And so we look for opportunities to relieve that pressure. And that's so normal. It happens all the time. Even though I'm sure in hindsight, you're that probably wasn't a good idea to cut my largest revenue stream out of my business on a whim. Right?
Yeah, because I had an emotional reaction and just went. like in an instant. And you know, it's like drop the bomb on the ship, but we really kind of needed that ship. There was probably a better way to handle it, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately what had happened is, like you said, I hit my capacity. I hadn't honed in on those skill bases. We were just barely on bringing me on some assistance. I was so new to passing things off, and I really was just holding things tight.
Yeah, we totally were just getting started at that point.
Yeah, we were just getting started. Yeah, I had Cammie. Cammie went to my meetings with me, and she was shocked. She was like, wait, what? You know, and I was like, I'll talk when I get to the office. But there was no recovery from what I had said.
What were you trying to do on your own? Because I know you were doing everything on your own, and that's what entrepreneurs often do, because those early stages require that. But then when you get a little bit later stage, it's like you got to start passing off. So as you're trying to make that transition, what were the things that you tried? Do you remember?
Well, with this client, as it started growing, like when I was just doing their grand opening, like I was in my lane. I'm like, events girl here. This is going to be,
no problem.
It was huge success.
Yep.
We came up with so many fun ideas that were just so outside of the car wash world that really just started making them stand out as like this community car wash. I mean, we had people hosting birthdays at their car wash because we had created like this, you know, we created this city thing where they set up this kid car wash and kids drove there. I don't know if you remember, big wheels through the car wash and it spun and everything through.
That is phenomenal.
And my brain was just going off on the things I'm good at. Creating an experience, making it stick, thinking outside the box.
Your cookies.
But there was this underlying happening of to do all these things. It was like my vision, then I had to pull it off. And then we had designers and everything, but they would send me things. I'm like, no, that's not it. Like I tried to control every tiny aspect of it. Yeah. So it would line up with my vision. And you kept saying, is this something Cammie can do? Like if they message you, can you tell them Cammie will get back to you? Like you kept trying to kind of steer me in that direction. I would say I was trying, but like Yoda said, there is no try, there's only do. Lesson came a little late because I'd like to say I was trying, but ultimately I just went and let go. Yeah. And I think that ended up being a really good thing because that's when I took a step back and said, okay, I had hit capacity. I blew up. This was like a 3-year account that just continued to grow, blew it, and then got humbled really quick. That's when I would say that all your little teachings really started dripping in. And I'm not sure if you remember this, but you messaged me and said, hey, let's schedule a call. You didn't really focus on, it's like, this is where we're at. So let's just make sure we never get here again. And then you were able to step by step take me from driving the bus and then telling everybody what to do, but you're going to be the driver no matter what. And if there's a blown tire, now you're the mechanic. And if the gas is empty, you're going to be the wayfinder to find out how to get gas in this bus. And you were just like, I get it.
Totally.
Now, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. And it never has since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a perfect kind of segue into what I was going to follow up with. So what has shifted? Because part of my framework in working with founders is mindset and systems and delegation. It's kind of like a 3-part sort of a flywheel that keeps going round and round that continues to level up. So with you, what happened after? Because you did level up, and I think your ceiling at that point has become your new floor. And now this is sort of, it seems like you've gotten bigger accounts, you've grown, you've got more people, you do have some delegation techniques and abilities that maybe didn't. So tell me more about that. Like, what was the big shifts that have happened since?
So I'm 1,000% team player now. I realize I'm not trying to be the hero anymore. Like that was another thing as an entrepreneur, like the ego, trying to be the hero in all things, like moving our worth, all of that fed into that. And now what has shifted is we win as a team. Like I'm not trying to be the hero in anything. And I know now I need a team. And I need a team who does their job well. I absolutely delegate. I stay in my lane. And it's not to say I don't work with other teams and I don't get in there and I'm in all the meetings and all of that. But I allow the people who do what they do best to show up to the meeting, show what they're going to do, teach me. I'm teachable now, which I would always say I was teachable, but I realized I wasn't. It's like in the back of my mind, the script is running. Yeah, that's really cute, but I would do it this way. As I'm picking up, what's left over the business I just dropped a bomb on. I would say the biggest mind shift for me is understanding that people have skills I do not have. I may have a little bit of it, but I want the person who, like you were saying, that does dive into spreadsheets, that does understand the structural side of it, that does understand the financing, that does understand the scaling. I understand it, but it is not what I do. It is not my gift. It is not my passion. It is definitely not my purpose.
For sure.
And now when I'm working with teams, whether it be a CMO, the team under, whether I'm doing fractional work or whatever, whatever, I now sit back and I'm the last one. I mean, you're going to be shocked, but I'm usually the last one to speak.
All right.
At the time. And you've been in meetings with me. I'm a big personality and I do kind of like the spotlight, and I would be in meetings and I always wanted to, let's see, I have a thought, I mean, it was all
some good contributions for sure.
Yeah. But, now I sit back and I wait, because what I have found is when the people are on my team, whether it's a team that I'm contracted with or my own team, I allow them to have the floor and do what they do and present all the way. And before I jump in, the reason I'm last to speak now is because usually by the end of it, they've covered it all. I've learned something. They usually have a really amazing ideas. They have a way of implementing things that I never even thought of. As to where before, because I was used to wearing all the hats, we would start and I'd be like, well, what about this? And did we think before they could even get through? Right. And so at the very end, like as things are happening, I'll just make little notes. And what I'm finding is I don't want to do all this. I don't want to be in charge.
That's what I'm thinking. Like if you're doing it all, then by nature, that kind of comes back to you to then go do it all, right? Exactly. So if you're saying it all, you do it all. But if you get through the end, you're like, that was pretty good. The only thought that I'd share is blank. It's like everybody else, they get to own it. And what you were saying then and a few minutes ago, really, 4 people that I talked to, 4 of my clients yesterday, said the same thing. They're like, the only problem I have in business is finding competent people. And then I heard that again the same day. Then I heard it again. I'm like, 4 times. So you're telling me that there's just no good, like there's people that are just dumb. Is that the deal? And I'm thinking of what you were just sharing, how you would not relinquish control, right? That's something we want to do. And by nature, when we don't do that, we kind of see through a filter of they're not going to do it as good as me, which turns into what those guys said to me, all men yesterday, by the way. All 4 of them said, if I just had good people, I would have no problems. There's no responsibility here. It's all over there.
Like, look at them. I can't find anybody that would do it. And it wouldn't even be as a good of a job, but not the way I would do it. Like the way I would do that. Well, are there other ways to do it? How many ways could we get to something?
And I would say, especially with the work that drains you, that is not your favorite, like we were saying before we started this, is the that you don't like.
Right.
If somebody else can do that, even if it's half as good as you, and you spend 0 time, that's badass.
And when the end result comes, it's like, okay, that's amazing. Next time, maybe let's just tweak these 2. Like they get better and better and better.
Totally.
Nobody's going to walk into a position and nail it as they come in. And I would say one of the things, Justin, that you also helped me when consulting with you, that you helped me line up with, was you cannot know someone else's talent if you don't ever allow them to do their job. So that is one skill that you taught me that I will say that I am grounded and rooted in, that has been one of the biggest shifts for me, is it's okay if it's not perfect. Let's just let them swim and see how they swim. And they've become stronger and stronger and stronger swimmers.
And that puts you in a position to coach, not tell. And now they're adding to their abilities from your ability. And that takes you all of about 9 seconds instead of typing out the whole email, making them feel like shit, that their work was, that's just awesome. That is totally awesome.
And I would say even with fractional work that I'm doing, like with my current accounts, when I'm coming in, I'm doing that with in-house teams. I used to come in and be like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And I would map everything out. And I was good at that. Yeah. Then I was trying to fit everybody in my box. And I was limiting their abilities. I did it with my own team. I was capping them growing and showing what they could do. Yep. And now that I have shifted that, holy cow, like we still tweak and do those things, but it's like giving them the gas to figure it out on their own and get better and better and sharpen their skills, instead of me going over there and going, here, let me show you how it should be. Yep. And the amount of time and mental capacity it took to manage a gazillion details, because I'm a perfectionist on how I would. Could we just change this one word? I swear to you, there was times teams were like, how about you just write it and I'll send it?
This is something I probably didn't tell you then, but there was 3 types of leaders, and it sounds like you've really become the 3rd type. But there's Seagull leadership, there's transactional leadership, and there's transformational leadership. Seagull leadership is when you're never really around, and then once in a while you swoop in, you shit on everybody's head, and you're like, that was wrong, and that was wrong, and that was wrong. What are you doing? And then transactional leadership is a step above that, but not that high not that big of a step, where you're constantly telling them everything that they need to do and you're still in charge. The bottleneck is definitely still you. But then transformational is what you've been able to step into, which is awesome, where you are able to allow them space to produce a product and hold a certain standard that still needs to be met, but you can now coach instead of tell. So the transaction is always telling. You're telling them everything to do. And that doesn't take very much weight off of your shoulders at all, because everything still comes back to you in that role. So it's not much of a leadership. Really, it's not that great of leadership at all. But transformational, you let them do it and you coach them up so that your skills can be imparted into them. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of it now. I'm proud of it. It's awesome.
Well, I will tell you, you saying the bottleneck, I remember when we were working together and we would go through things and you're like, but you're the bottleneck here. This is you. Like, do you understand? Like, and you would show me and I would stare. I'm like, I know that's bottlenecking. But the thing is these people don't know. And you're like, but they could know. Or let's get someone who does know. Like, what do you need? Because this is a bottleneck. And if it's a bottleneck, we can't scale. You can't grow. We're not going to reach your goals. That whole level of moving the bottleneck and just, I feel like you were so good at just putting the mirror, back in front of me, which which sometimes isn't fun. To have a mirror put back in your face and said, you might just be the problem here. Because nobody wants to be told they're the problem and they think that they're the solution. No, I'm the solution. No, well, you are kind of until we hit this bottleneck. Now you're the problem, you know? And so with my second big client, and you know who that is, and I started working with them, I could clearly see who was the bottlenecks in the team. And then I was like, oh my God, Justin is right. I am a bottleneck for my team. This a bottleneck for his team. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden when someone else's bottleneck is affecting your own job, then suddenly you're like, I don't want to be this to my team. This is so frustrating. So just that experience of you coaching me like you're the bottleneck, and then I'm like, I'm not. And then I see other people bottlenecking and then I realize I am the bottleneck, and it's so frustrating. And I don't want to do that to my team, and just accepting that and saying, okay, what do we got to do? And now I would say, I don't know, do you think I was probably one of your more difficult clients?
No, you have spirit and you're animated and that was good. Like, you exemplify what I love about entrepreneurs. Like, you had a Christmas party. The whole thing was, everybody had a great time. It was stacked from beginning to end. It was awesome. And you brought that together and you pulled that off and you created that culture for those people to feel seen, to feel like a part of the team, to be like, it was just awesome. And I just thought that was so special. And that's why I like doing what I do, because I want you to have the freedom and space to do shit like that. Right. Not screw with some project management software where your return on the investment of time is minimal. And there's
frustration too.
Yeah, and there's somebody else out there that could like sail through that way better than me and you. To see you being able to blossom more in those things, like, I think more rewarding. Like, I want to see you continue to just kick ass, because you do have tremendous traits and gifts. And I know, just because, talk about mirror, I am the mirror of this. That's why I'm doing this, because I've gone through all this stuff and I've never let go of the control and I wanted to do it all my way. And it's like, I'm so damn stubborn that it takes like lawsuits, litigation, threats of jail for me to be like, okay, I'll listen this time. Okay.
Hold on, let me get my hearing aid in.
Yeah. So I get it. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Right.
So was there anything that made kind of what we worked on different than some of the things that you were trying or considering on your own? Or was there any kind of unlocking or breakthrough kind of idea, or, kind of what made this work for you compared to other stuff that maybe was just contributing to more frustration?
I would say working with you and consulting with you did a major shift, and it hasn't changed since that happened, which was I realized I'm not just a business owner, and I'm not just an entrepreneur, and I'm not just a marketing person and a creative person, that there's actually a business side to this. I really did have this attitude that I'm so good at what I do, the rest of it will just work itself out.
Yeah.
It doesn't. When you came in and started putting processes, like the one thing you hammered in our meetings was, but what is the process for this? What are we meeting on? Because you knew we wanted to scale, and you could see we could not scale doing what we were doing, but you could also see that I had to see that in order to get on board. Right. And I think the way you worked with me was very, in a way, and I don't know how you work with other clients, and I'm sure you do the same thing, but you listen and you understand, but so professionally said, okay, I understand that because I too am an entrepreneur, or I too have dealt with that. Let's just start here. I would say processes now. I am a process. I would have never thought in a million years.
Yep.
Never.
Yeah.
You know, but now if I go into and project management and deadline, like how are we tracking this and how are those numbers getting tracked and how are we billing for the, I mean, and then you also on another level, the legalities of things that I never thought of. That you were like, well, hold on, let's just think this through. Do we need to have a lawyer look at this? And I'm like, a lawyer? Yes, we absolutely needed to have a lawyer look at things, you know? But I'm like, a lawyer? Like, why would we need, but like on contracts and just different ways, because, you know, when I was working with you, I would go into a client, meet with them, have a discovery meeting, and put together a contract that broke up the hours and the strategy and all of that. And you would look at that and I would think, wow, this looks great. And then you would be like, okay, let's just, you had a lawyer that you allowed us, that we used through you, that just looked at contracts. That's all they did. I remember first thinking, I've been doing this. Like, what is it? But we ran into copyright issues with that client. Like there were things, I mean, that didn't directly come from me, but you helped me see a 360 view of business. Like if you want to go to that next level, these are things that you're going to have to understand, implement. It's going to have to be foundational. Now those things are. I mean, I mentor other companies now and startups, and the things you taught me, I'm teaching them.
That's awesome.
Like, and so, you know, it really does. I would say the most impactful thing is, even if it is just a pain in the ass at first and you just don't want to do it because you're busy. Like I was busy. I'm like, the last thing I want to do at the end of the day is go read Justin's email on what's your process here and what could you, I didn't want to even look at it because I'm busy. I don't remember if it was you that told me this, but somewhere along the line, it was probably from you that you said, you know, busy isn't a badge. It's not a badge of honor to be busy. Like, that's not something you ever want to be telling people, like, oh, I'm busy, as if it's a badge of honor. And up to that point, I had looked at, oh, let me see if I can get you in. I'm so busy, as if that's something. And you looked at it as like, don't ever say that to anyone. Like that means you don't have control of your schedule. It means you don't have a team. Like you should never be busy. You should be calculated. You should be strategic. You should, like, all those things. And those skills I have taken with me now. And now those meetings are so important to me. I look at them and I do see the legal side of it. I do see the project management side of it. I do see where the bottlenecks are. I do see if we can scale or not scale. I do see, like, who can we pass this off to, you know? You also gave me a lot of books to read. I think Who Not What, I think is what it's called.
Who Not How, maybe?
Who Not How. Yeah, Who Not How. I don't know, just a whole handful. You gave me a whole handful of books. You're like, I want you to read this book. And even if you don't read the whole thing, like, let's get through these things. And but it really did give me just this just practical things, and you would just hammer. Like, not, but you would just keep pushing back. Like, yeah, and you helped hire my first assistant. You brought on Kendall, brought on Cammie, understood like what they could do, and you understood what I could pass off. Even if I didn't understand it, you understood that I could pass these things off. Now I'm 100% in that lane. I'm like, wait, what's the system? What's our project map? How are we doing this? Did somebody take a look at this? Did a lawyer look at this?
Awesome. That's good. So what would you tell somebody in those shoes? If somebody's on the fence and thinking about doing something like this, or should I invest into my own coaching, into my own self, into my own, how would you respond to somebody like that? What would you say?
I would just say, if your goal is to grow, you absolutely have to grow first in your mind. Like you have to let go of some things, and skills you don't have, find someone who has it. I would say getting a mentor like you, getting a consultant, they see things we cannot see. Period. And then also being open to that. Let the ego die. I'm not doing this to puff up my own chest. I'm doing this for whatever reason. Identify the reason you're doing it. Get working with Justin or somebody in his lane and listen and implement. And it is hard to do because you have to get over yourself, you know.
For sure.
But the end result, the output of that is just, well, I just don't think you can grow without doing it. I truly don't. Like, I just think that you absolutely have to always be reaching for somebody who does it better than you and learn from them and allow someone to come in and say, I get what you're doing. Like for me, you're like, I get what you're doing. The thing you don't understand is you don't get what I'm doing. Like you don't get this side. And my goal is to make sure you get this side.
Yeah.
So you can get to where you're wanting to go. So just trust me and follow. And it's not to say it wasn't a conversation. It's not to say you didn't listen. You were great at all of that. But I did not get your side. I did not get the legalities. I did not get the scaling. I did not get the processes. And you cleared that path. And now that I get it, like you said, I'm just continually growing, and I've now hit another floor in a ceiling I want to go through, and I'm looking for mentor. Like every time I hit that, I'm like, okay, who's the mentor I need for this? I'm so open to it now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It really is about changing yourself and being a better version. And I love what you said about it's not about your ego. It's about getting clear. And most people just don't know what they want. And if you can make a little bit of space and get clear on what you want or what you're doing this all for, it's usually not to work 60 hours a week. It's usually not to work for some crazy business owner who texts you at midnight and is always busting your ass on, just wanting more and more and more for the same price. All these things, when you get clear, then it becomes a forcing function that makes it a lot easier to say yes to things and no to things. Usually it's more no to things, but and you've done a great job of exemplifying that and bringing more peace and stability and constancy into your business. And I just love watching it. So keep kicking ass. Thank you, Jennie.
Thank you. And I will say too that you helped me get clear. Because I didn't even know what I wanted because I didn't understand it. So just on that note, I just want to say thank you for that, because working with you helped me to get clear. So.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. You're welcome. Thank you.